George Foreman made a lot of money doing this, and way more doing this. But how did he get there? Let's find out. George Foreman was born on January 10, 1949 in Marshall, Texas. George, along with his 6 siblings, grew up in Houston's 5th Ward. He was a huge football fan, idolizing Jim Brown, but he wasn't a fan of school and dropped out at age 15. George joined the Job Corps after seeing a commercial for the Corps that featured his idol. George ended up in Oregon, got his GED, and one night while listening to a Muhammad Ali fight on the radio, someone suggested that he try boxing. This idea led him to California, where he learned to box from Charles "Doc" Brodus. And 2 years later, he won the gold medal in the 1968 Olympics, turned pro in 1969, fought this guy to win the championship, beat this guy, but lost to this guy. No longer champion, George kept fighting for a few more years before losing to this guy and announcing his retirement in 1977 at age 28 with a record of 45-2. He left the ring to become a minister. By 1987, George Foreman had this, and this. All of these things were very expensive, and soon George was all out of this. So he decided to get back in the ring at age 38. He kept fighting, kept winning, and eventually got a title shot against this guy. Foreman didn't win the fight, but he did win a lot of fans and endorsement opportunities. Foreman kept fighting, beating this guy in 1994 to become champion at age 45. After that, Foreman fought 4 more times, with his boxing career culminating in a loss to this guy on November 27, 1997, at age 48. In 1984, at an awards banquet, Foreman heard Mary Kay Ash comment that, "My father told me when I was young that if you learn to sell, you will never starve." That message stuck with Foreman and would serve him well later on. Foreman found that while his endorsement deals paid well, they were just temporary, as the companies would all inevitably move on to someone else to endorse their products after a while. Wanting longevity and continuous earnings, Foreman figured the way to do this was to have something of his own to promote. Now, all he needed was something to put his name on permanently. Enter Sultan Incorporated. They purchased the rights to a grill that nobody was excited about. It could cook both sides of an item at the same time and reduce the fat content by having it drip out of the grill, but nobody cared. So Sultan thought having a celebrity as the face of the product would help stimulate sales. It turns out a guy at Sultan knew a guy who knew a guy who knew George Foreman. Sultan gave a grill to the guy to give to the guy to give to Foreman so he could check it out and consider putting his name on the product. Thinking his lawyer was bringing him another lucrative endorsement deal, Foreman eagerly asked about the pay. The answer? You see, to reduce their loss potential in case things didn't work out, Sultan Incorporated was only interested in a deal with no royalties, instead splitting the profits. Foreman didn't love this deal and didn't give an answer right away. After several months went by, Sultan was getting impatient and pressed for an answer. Foreman admittedly had not thought about the grill, but fortunately his wife, who was looking for a quick and easy way to cook for their 10 children, had. She recommended the grill to George, who then tried and loved a burger that was cooked on it. After that, in 1994, the George Foreman Lean Mean Fat-Reducing Grilling Machine was introduced to the market. In return for being the face of the product, often referred to as simply the George Foreman Grill, Foreman would get 40% of the sales. The initial sales were slow, prompting Sultan Incorporated to produce a 30-minute infomercial featuring their famous spokesperson doing what he was best known for at the time, boxing. Unfortunately, the infomercial did little to help sales, as people failed to make a connection between watching George box and buying a grill to cook with. But after Sultan did some editing, replacing the boxing footage with shots of George eating burgers and being a family man, sales started taking off. In 1996, the second full year the grill was available, the revenue from its sales reached $5 million. By 1998, that number skyrocketed to $200 million. George was getting checks left and right. On the night of his final pro fight, a loss to Shannon Briggs, Foreman's lawyer presented him with a $1 million check from sales of the grill. So even though he lost, he still won. In 1999, after a few very profitable years of sales, Sultan Incorporated purchased George Foreman's interest in the grill, including permanent rights to using his name, for a reported $137.5 million in cash and stock. He also received a few extra bucks to continue endorsing the grill internationally, which was fine by Foreman, as he didn't want anyone else being the face of a product with his name on it. While this was enough money to set up the Foreman family for life, George was not about to stop. In 2003, Foreman signed a deal with Casual Male Clothing to create a plus-size men's line of apparel. The sales of that line were successful enough that after a mere 4 months, the clothing store chain extended its deal with Foreman by 12 years through 2018. The Casual Male deal also created an expansion opportunity for Foreman. In 2005, Seymour Holtzman, who was chairman of Casual Male Retail Group, also was the chairman of Companies, which was at one time a custom CD maker and was still a publicly traded company. The two joined forces to create George Foreman Enterprises Incorporated, which traded under the symbol GFME. Among other ventures, the company would go on to make a deal with U-Food grill restaurants, launch the Life Shake, a nutritional product, and developed a line of specialty shoes for diabetics. Unfortunately, George Foreman Enterprises couldn't quite recreate the success of the grill. The company reported just 2 marginally profitable years between 2007 and 2011. Things got a bit more complicated after that, as the company did not file any quarterly reports after September of 2011 and was eventually delisted after having its securities revoked. This wouldn't stop George, though. He tried the shoe game one more time, making a deal with Footsmart.com for a line of casual and athletic footwear for men and women. And as of 2022, George Foreman has an estimated net worth of $300 million. So clearly, through beating up, heating up, and eating up, Big George Foreman is in the black.